Hi everybody, it's just Claire. I just thought I'd pull together this quick tutorial on chameleon markers. Some of you will have seen my post from yesterday that I've started colouring in my Ivy and the Inky Butterfly book cover. And in parts, for instance the dragon and these leaves here and the pink flower, I used my Chameleon Marker Pens. And in the past, a few of you have asked me to do a tutorial on chameleons, but yesterday, in response to the post, quite a few of you got in touch to say, oh, I've got chameleon pens, I haven't really dared use them yet, I'm not quite sure what to do with them. So I just thought I'd pull together this quick tutorial to show you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how the pens work first, and then we'll practice with a leaf on the front of the book. Now, before I start, I want to point out that I've not coloured in any of my pages with the chameleon pens because the pages are a little bit too thin. Although they're reasonably cardy, I wouldn't risk the bleed through on the normal pages. However, the front cover is thick card. And if I just move these out of the way for 1 second, and you can see that where I've coloured the dragon, if I just show you the inside, there's absolutely no bleed through whatsoever because this cover is thick card, so that I knew I'd be able to use the chameleons on it, but I wouldn't use them for inside. So the chameleon pens come in a range of colours. I've got the large set which has 50 colours in. They come in literally a rainbow of colours. The one that I've got out today is that I'm going to show you is grass green. They all have little indicators on the top. So this one is GR3, which is grass green. And the packs that you can get will all come with a colourless blender and a fine detail pen. Now the colourless blender is exactly that. You get a brush tip. With all chameleon pens they have two nibs and a bullet nib. And it's exactly the same for the detail marker. You get a 0.4 and a 0.6 black fine liner. And that's just for completing kind of outlines, key lines, things like that. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move my book to one side. And as I say, I've got the GR3, the grass green out. Now these pens come in basically 2 compartments. So, the first compartment has, if you can just about see that, the clear transparent nib that holds the clear ink that you dip your pen into, and that changes the depth of the colour that goes on the page. This part of the pen is actually the physical marker pen. So you've got a cap here that comes off for your brush marker. And then if you wanted to do a little bit more detail, you've got a cap there that comes off and it gives you a bullet tip marker. So they're really good for various types of designs, for however complicated a design you're actually colouring in. So here's the magic bit. If I just use this, I'm going to use the brush tip as an example. So if I just use the brush tip, that is the natural colour of the GR3 green, grass green pen. Now, here's the clever part. So we take this blender part of the tube, and what we do is you can see that in the middle there, we've got the blender nib. All I'm going to do is put this part of the pen, so I've got my brush tip, into there and turn it upside down so that the transparent blender compartment is at the top. So I'm literally just holding it there. And dependent on how long you hold this pen in this position, so you can see inside this little cartridge that the blender is touching the tip of the pen, and that's going to weaken the depth of the colour, and it will gradually change back to this original colour. And depending on how long you leave the 2 nibs touching for will determine how light a depth of colour you start with. So I've left that in probably now for 10 seconds. So I'm going to take it out. And then what you will see is that there's hardly any of that grass green colour. But as I move side to side and go down over, you will see gradually that the strength of that grass green colour comes back to its 100%. Now you can leave, as I say, you can put the brush nib or your bullet nib into the blender compartment for as long as you like, really, from anything from about 5 seconds to 20 seconds. The 5 seconds will probably get you from, I would say, about there down over. And the longer that you make the nibs touch, the lighter and the longer this shade variation will be. So I left that in for 10 seconds. If I'd have done it for 20 seconds, this pale would have lasted a lot longer and you've got an even more graduated colour change going down. And that's basically how they work. And your colourless blender, so you can see that I've kind of quickly done the lines, and you can probably see that there's some little kind of like brush pen marker marks. And basically all you use your blender for is how you would use a normal marker pen blender. So you kind of just smooth it out. Just go over the whole thing, and the colourless blender just smooths away those lines for you, like that. So, how to translate that into using it on your book. So, let me put my Ivy book down. So, if you think from light to dark, think about your light sources on your page. So, for instance, for my dragon that you can see here, you can see that he's various shades of the light green Chameleon pen that I used. And I knew that I wanted for his neck to be a little bit lighter there, and for there to be a highlight on his elbow, but for his snout and his back down here to be darker. So that's how you start to think about putting these pens into practice. So I knew that when I'd got my brush pen to this very, very pale shade of the depth of that colour, that I was going to do these areas here, which were very, very light, and then gradually work into the areas that were darker. So in that way you translate this kind of light to dark depth into the piece that you're colouring to replicate the depth of whatever you're colouring in. So again, for instance here, if I just move my book over slightly, if you can see this leaf. So I started off with just having the tip of the leaf highlighted and then gradually getting darker as it got down to the stalk. So you're just always thinking about, how do I use this depth of the same colour to give me light and shade? Again, with the pink Chameleon pen that I used here, I just started at the tips of each petal and worked my way down so that the depth of the colour would be inside the flower where you would expect the natural shadow to sit. So I've got my grass green, and this little leaf here, I'm just going to zoom in for you. I think you can just about see that, because it's this leaf here that we're going to be colouring. Just move it into the middle a little bit. So again, I'm going to use my brush marker. So I've got my brush pen. I'm going to remove the blender compartment. I'm going to put my brush pen in, and then you've got to remember that the blender compartment goes on the top. The actual marker goes underneath and the blender pen goes on the top, and then you just hold it upright for a few seconds. Like that. And then what I'm going to do for this leaf here is start at the top, and you can test it on your page if you want, so that I can see I've hardly got any colour there, which is what I want. And I'm just going to go down, because I want the highlight of this leaf to be at the top, and I'm just going to go down in gradual strokes like that, so that the depth of the colour you can see coming out, so it reverts back to that original grass green colour that the pen is. And it's that easy. It's that easy. So again, I'm just going to finish off this leaf in the same colour while I'm there. So I'm just reactivating the nib. A few seconds, like that. And then I'm going to start from this side and work my way down over, gradually reverting back to that original colour. so that the shadow or the deepest colour falls where it would sit behind that flower in front. And that's it. Now I've also got a purple pen out because I thought I'd just quickly show you a different colour as well. So if I am going to at some point do my back card cover in the same Chameleon pens, because again it's the thick card, you can see how thick it is. So I'm just going to, I've got my PR4 purple grape, and I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do with these little bell colour flowers here. So again, I'm going to use my brush marker. I've got my blender compartment. Blender compartment goes on the top. Like that. We wait for a few seconds. Like that. And then I'm just going to, on these little bluebell flowers, again, just working top to bottom in sweeps. Just gradually, carefully working my way down over so that I've got the highlight at the top of the flowers. And then the bottom of the flowers revert back to that deeper purple grape. Like that. And basically that's how to use them. They are relatively simple, but they do take a little bit of practice and they do take a little bit of getting used to, especially with the amount of time that you leave the brush in the blender compartment to be able to get this variation in colour. So that's what I've been doing with Ivy and Inky. There are some Chameleon books that you can buy. I don't want to dwell on them too much because this is a Johanna Basford video, but it was just to quickly show you. You can get little Chameleon colour cards to practice on. And what they are postcard side cards. These are little toadstools, and you get examples that come in the pack that teach you how to use the pens. So this is an example of how this one could be coloured in, and it gives you the pen colours to use. So you get 16 of those in a pack, and I learned to use my Chameleon pens with those. And you can also get proper Chameleon poster colouring books, which are made of carded sheets, and the one that I've got is Loris Art Garden. But as I said, I don't want to dwell on those too much because the point was to show you Ivy and the Inky Butterfly. So hopefully that will have given you a little bit of a for instance as to how I've done the dragon and some of these flowers and how I'm going to finish off. I'm going to be using a mix of the Chameleon pens and my normal Prismacolor pencils. I've got Ivy down in this bottom corner, and I've done her with pencils, and clearly there's a lot of detail in here that even the bullet nib on the Chameleon pens wouldn't really get to. So I'm going to use a mix of media. But hopefully that has helped you with your Chameleon pens. Any questions? Drop me a line. Bye for now.